And I remember coming into this projection booth and falling in love and just looking around and being like, this place is so special. We have to really make sure it stays here.
That was Roxie Theater Executive Director Lex Sloan. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and working people who make this city what it is. In this episode, meet and get to know Lex, who's joined by Roxie Board of Directors member Henry S. Rosenthal. After sharing their stories and how each of them ended up in San Francisco, Henry and Lex talk about finding and eventually becoming involved with the Roxie. We end part 1 with Lex leading us through a really interesting history of the space on 16th Street in the Mission. Check back Thursday for part 2. Here's Henry S. Rosenthal and Lex Sloan.
My life story. The life story of Henry S. Rosenthal.
What's the S stand for?
Sigmund.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. My father was very adamant about using the S, so
Yeah.
I struggled to use it whenever possible.
Nice.
I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Had an idyllic childhood, of course. Began attending live music concerts at age 13. Loved Iggy and the Stooges and the MC5.
Yes.
That gave me a taste for the harder stuff. Left Cincinnati after high school, moved to San Francisco in 1973 to attend the New College of California.
Oh, yeah, over on Valencia.
On Valencia. At the time I came to town, it was in a warehouse on the Sausalito waterfront.
Oh.
I was on the search committee to find the mortuary on Valencia Street that became its future home. And
Can I ask quickly,
yes.
when you're in Cincinnati, I mean, this is not the dark ages, but
Yes.
it's not the internet ages. Like, how did you find out about New College?
I was an early subscriber to Rolling Stone magazine, which in the early days was a lifeline to people all over the world
Yeah.
about what was really happening, and I cannot overestimate its importance. New College ran a little display ad in the back of an issue of Rolling Stone, and it was a picture of the Earth, and it said, New College of California, learn how to learn.
Yes.
And that captivated me, and I visited the campus, such as it was, the one-room campus, on a trip this summer. I was 17.
Did you drive out?
I drove out,
I
drove
like to hear those
cross-country.
road trip stories
Yep.
to San Francisco.
And visited the campus, and they wanted me to enroll right on the spot. I said, that's awfully kind of you, but I think I should go back to Cincinnati and finish high school first.
Oh, yeah.
So they said that wasn't necessary, but I thought it was. And so that's what I did. And eventually, and then the next year, ended up there.
In 1973, you said?
73, yes.
Okay.
And it was an incredible experience. It was a free-form school where you could design your own curriculum.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
I began producing a cable TV series while I was in college. It was the dawn of cable television, and I learned about community access. So decided I was going to just produce a show, which I did. And that led to a career of producing, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
All right. When you arrived as I'm going to guess like 18, 19-year-old or so. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you have a plan to stay here, or did it just kind of grab you and you haven't been able to let go?
The latter.
Yeah.
I always assumed that I would return to Cincinnati
Yeah.
and assume my rightful place as the prince of the city. But then being here, it suddenly occurred to me, why in the world would I do that? So I had started digging my roots here pretty fast.
Do you want to talk quickly about first impressions? Like, what was it about just overall San Francisco, the Bay, that kind of thing that got you?
Wow. Well, at the time I moved here, there were still movie palaces in operation on Market Street, and I didn't know anybody here at that point, so I spent a lot of time watching movies. And that was the time that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, and Enter the Dragon was in theaters. And I went to see those multiple times, and just was... If you have to explain San Francisco to people, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just when you're here, you're in it. And I fell in love with the town. And,
I've been describing it as
left.
magic lately.
Yeah, it is
that's
magic.
a good way to be like, I don't really know the word or how to explain it, but there's magic here. Yeah.
No
Anyway.
question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Lex, your turn.
Ooh, how do I follow that story, Henry? Wow.
It's not a competition.
Well, good, 'cause I would not win. My story is a bit different, but similarly, I went to school in Bellingham, Washington, at a college called Fairhaven College that had design your own degree. And I designed my own degree in social change media.
Okay.
And I remember my father being very confused and wondering what I was going to do with that degree. And after I graduated college, I ended up moving down to the middle of nowhere, Arizona.
Oh.
And it was not for me. I made it about 7 or 8 months there and was wistfully looking for where I would land next, and kind of made this spreadsheet with all of the different options.
Yes. You're speaking my language.
Of things that would be the next place I wanted to go. And San Francisco was top of that spreadsheet. And
checked the most boxes.
It sure did.
Yeah.
And I applied for a job it was actually in Redwood City, but I didn't know the Bay Area well enough to realize that was not quite San Francisco. And they called me up and asked if I could come in for an interview. And I had not put on the application that I was living in Arizona. And I said, sure, I can be there on Monday. And I packed up everything I owned in the back of my Chevy Tracker and drove up here for this job interview, which I eventually did get the job. It was teaching video production at a community center in Redwood City. And I lived in a hostel here on Mission Street for a few weeks till I found the place I would call home for many years off of Craigslist, and moved into a 9x9x9 room, paying $525. And when I came here, it just felt like I was always meant to be here. And people are welcoming and kind, and I would strike up conversations with strangers on the street. And I remember going to the Lex, which was like this amazing lesbian bar in the Mission. And I walked in there, and my ex-girlfriend from back in college days was bartending.
Of course.
And I was like, okay, obviously the universe has brought me to this moment.
That's
and
the magic.
This is where I'm here to
That's
stay.
the magic.
Definitely.
Was that job interview the first time you ever came to the Bay Area at all?
Second,
Okay.
yeah. I had come here, actually drove down with a girlfriend during undergrad, and we drove down here from Bellingham, Washington during Pride.
Yes.
And I remember driving across the Bay Bridge and being like, wow, this place is magic. I would love to live here someday.
Hell yeah. And so can you give us a time frame of when you got that job and when you decided this is at least where I'm going to be now?
Yeah, I've been here 20 years. So it was
22-0.
Yeah, it was in 2005.
All right. Well, I think we have to now, before we get into the Roxie, talk about how each of you were sucked in by this palace of wonder. Yeah, let's hear that, Henry.
Well, as a leading independent art house theater, I've been attending the Roxie for a very long time, since it's been an art house.
Do you remember your first time to come
I don't
here?
remember my first time at the Roxie. I'm kind of lamenting the fact that I never attended the Roxie during the period when it was a porn theater.
Okay.
I don't know how I missed that, but I did. But since it's been repertory art house cinema, I've been a frequent patron.
Okay.
I was friends with Bill Banning, who ran the theater for many years and created Roxie Releasing, the distribution arm of operation of the enterprise. And I'm looking down here at the cans for Rivers and Tides right here.
Oh yeah,
a Roxie Releasing title, one of their big
there
titles.
Awesome.
Great film, by the way. So Bill and I were friends. Our children attended school together. We would cross paths at film festivals all the time. I was there showing new work. Bill was there scouting titles for the theater. And then over the years, as the structure of the organization changed, there were opportunities. There was a board of directors that was created as it made its transition to a nonprofit model, which it did some years ago. And almost from the beginning, I was approached as a person who might be a good prospective board member. At the time, I would always ask about, well, how was the theater doing? And I was told, well, we're struggling. And I said, I've been on a lot of nonprofit organizational boards that were struggling, and I'm just not, I can't sign up for that right now. Mm-hmm. But eventually, I was approached again when the theater was doing very well and in very good shape, and I said, now I will join. I just can't deal with constant crises.
Right, and that's knowing yourself, I think,
yes.
right? It's knowing maybe how you can fit into it.
Well, I'd had a lot of history, and my capacity had filled.
Yeah.
And so...
And when was that you came on?
I joined the board, I guess, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, around pandemic time?
I remember meeting you.
Yes.
We met at George's house
for dinner. Yes.
For dinner, and that was one of the first questions you asked me was, "How's the Roxie doing?
How is it doing?" Yeah, that's the
and
only question to ask.
I gotta say, we're thriving.
Yes.
This was right before the pandemic.
Right before. Okay.
Right before the pandemic, and and I just remember that meeting you so distinctly and being like,
that was the key to me saying yes.
Oh, that's great that we.
But I really joined the board with one goal in mind. There had been a dream for a long time for the Roxie to purchase its own building. The Roxie had been a renter, or the theaters that occupied this building. Mm-hmm. None of them had ever owned the building. So that precarious situation had to end.
Yeah.
So I made it, that was my personal goal.
Can we put a pin in that, as they say?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
I like to keep the podcast somewhat chronological.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we'll definitely talk about that.
Chronological.
Ish.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah.
So how did you come to be?
I do remember my first Roxie moment, and right after I'd moved to San Francisco, I was looking to crew up on some local films, and again, back to Craigslist, I found a film shoot that needed a PA, posted on Craigslist, and the film was a local queer film called Getting Off, and I said, sign me up, and worked as a PA for free on that film. And that film premiered here during the Frameline Film Festival.
Yes.
And I remember, because I was a PA, I did not get a ticket. I was not on the list. And I remember coming, and there was a line around the block. Mm-hmm. And I was just hoping I could get in. But that line was full of my people.
Yeah.
And I did get in, and I saw it on the Roxie screen, and it was just electric. Mm-hmm. The theater was alive, and people were hooting and hollering and clapping, and that was my first Roxie moment where I was like, this place, there's something really, really special about this place.
Hell yeah. And
then over the years, I came back to the Roxie as I worked for various film festivals. So part of going through grad school at San Francisco State, I worked a lot of gigs, and one of those gigs was I ended up working for the Frameline Film Festival as print traffic assistant. That's how I got my in, which meant I was lugging 35 millimeter prints and 16 millimeter prints and beta tapes up to the projection booths of various theaters, and I took films up to the Castro and took films up to the projection booth here at the Roxie. And I remember coming into this projection booth and falling in love and just looking around and being like, this place is so special. We have to really make sure it stays here. And that at that time, so many places I loved were disappearing from the San Francisco landscape. The Lex had just closed, and thrift stores that I loved were closing. And I was just standing in this projection booth being like, wow, this place has so much going for it. Yeah. How do we keep it here? And a few years later, I was standing in the same projection booth and offered the job as operations director. And that was 10 years ago that I said yes.
Congrats. 10 years. I'm thinking of the analogy of like throwing yourself on the tracks. Like you're seeing all this loss. It was like, and it's going to be an ongoing thing in San Francisco. Yeah. We know this. Yeah. But there are things we can do. Yeah. To hold on to the things that we love. So.
Got to dig in, and just really dedicate. And it wasn't just me. It was such a huge, small. I should say a small but committed group of people that also threw themselves on the tracks and were like, we can't lose this place. And that was 2015.
Hell yeah. Okay, who can speak well to the history, which we've touched on a little bit.
I can start us off.
I didn't even know the porn theater part of it.
I can start us
wonderful.
off.
Shit like that surprised me and my listeners.
Sure, you got it. I'm full of Roxie history facts.
Yes,
it oozes from my pores. So the Roxie is really special because it was purpose built as a movie theater. It wasn't converted from something else. The blueprints that we have from 1913 show the Roxie as the movie theater that is very similar to the Roxie Theater of today. And so purpose-built as a movie theater in 1913. And the first name of the Roxie Theater was the Poppy Theater.
Poppy, like the state flower, like this tattoo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then shortly after it was the Poppy, it became the 16th Street, then the new 16th Street, then the Gaiety, then the Rex. And it was in the 1930s that the Roxie got the name, the Roxie, spelled Roxie, Roxie Theater. And it was also in the 30s that our marquee came over from an auto dealership in Oakland. Oh. And it was brought over on a barge. The auto dealership was called Delacroix. And if you look really closely at the blade of our marquee, you can still see the faint paint of the auto dealership. So once we got the marquee, we officially became the Roxie Theater, and we've been the Roxie Theater ever since.
1930...
We want to say around 32, early 1930s.
Let's go with 32, yeah.
We'll say early 1930s. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of our history before the 70s is really a blur. Yeah. And most of the history I've been able to find has been from old phone books, old newspapers. But there wasn't a rich archive. Like the story of getting the blueprints, I will save for another time, but it took me at least 2 years to get the blueprints, and they were rescued from a dumpster. Oh, wow. By an amazing collector who has a lot of other theater blueprints. So then the timeline, after we become the Roxie, we were a German language cinema. And the gentleman who ran the cinema, always a neighborhood cinema, the whole concession stand was German candies. Which I love. Yeah. And
Kinder eggs among them?
I think it might have been before. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. But the story goes that people would just call up the theater and ask him for advice. And it was owned by a couple. And then in the 50s, we have some projectionist notes that we found from the walls, that were actually found in the walls,
Oh, wow.
that show us doing Jeopardy, news and cartoons. There might have been a clown. There were stage contests. And so even in the 50s, it was very much a neighborhood theater where people were getting news and information, where they might be winning a set of dishware if they came enough times. And on the back of those notes from the projection booth is like, honey, did you pay the phone bill? Yes, I did pay the phone bill. It was $12.48.
Was that the couple
yeah.
talking to each other through notes?
Yeah,
oh,
through
I
the
love it.
projectionist notes. So really family owned and operated for many years. And then fast forward to the late 60s, early 70s, when the Roxie was a triple X theater. We've got some good YouTube clips of that time. There was a turnstile in front of the theater doors.
Oh, to keep the kids out? Or who knows?
I'm not exactly sure what it was used for, but making sure everybody paid to come on in.
Yeah.
And
but like old school turnstile with the big prongs and the yeah.
And our poster cases had, just big XXXs in them. Same poster cases of today, different posters we have up now. But really it was in the late 70s, 76, 77, that a group of artists took over the Roxie. And we really think of it as our spiritual founding of the art house cinema that we know and love today. And those folks, Peter Moore, Robert Evans, they put people before profit. And I think that is an ethos that has maybe got the Roxie into trouble sometimes, but is something that is what makes the Roxie so special. And that's when you start seeing our printed calendars that we have up all over the theater, that were showing Eraserhead at midnights and around the block lines. A lot of really known for our midnight movie screenings. That was a big deal. Also showing films that were impossible to find anywhere else. Foreign films, documentary, just like doubling down on the Roxie being the place to see the weirdest, coolest, hardest to find movies.
That was Lex Sloan and Henry S. Rosenthal from the Roxie. We recorded this episode in the projection booth at the Roxie Theater in the Mission. On the next Storied San Francisco, hear more from Lex and Henry about the Roxie Theater, including its continued efforts to buy the building where the theater has existed since 1913. Part 2 drops this Thursday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 8th season, we have more than 280 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Find us on Substack for our monthly newsletter and more. And follow us on Instagram and Threads at storiedsf. Reach us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Try to stay hopeful in these dark times. Keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.